Hey folks, and welcome back to So What's Your Process, the show where we talk with creatives from all different fields about what they do and how they do it. I'm Kyle Dalsimer.
And I'm Allie Dalsimer.
And Allie, we've got a really exciting guest today. Do you want to tell us about who you brought?
Yes. So today's guest is not only an author, but a school counselor and a creator of the Adventures of Harold from the Hood series, which is for kids pre-K to fifth grade, as well as an animated cartoon adaptation to accompany it. And he runs a program that teaches children's social skills through learning. Today's guest is Dr. Jim Price. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Thank you for having me. Such a blessing to be here, Kyle. We're just, Allie, it's just such a blessing to be here. I was so excited when we were able to collaborate and get together and everything. So I'm just excited and blessed to be here, a part of your show.
Well, we're excited to have you. We're
Yes.
excited to have you. So I'd like to dive right in a little bit, if you don't
Go
mind.
for it.
As a writer, I am still a burgeoning writer. You have been doing it for a while, and I really, I dabbled in the children's literature arena unsuccessfully. I didn't put anything out or even try to because it just wasn't good. And your books, your character Harold, and the adventures and the messages of it's okay to be different, and it really resonated and spoke to me. It's just so compelling, and I have actually a whole bunch of questions about it. But the first question I had was, how did you decide to make your protagonist a purple snail?
Well, when I'm kind of a old school cartoon connoisseur, as they say, so a lot of my content is, kind of based upon all that. Like back in the day when they had Hanna-Barbera and those things, Looney Tunes and all that, I was always up Saturday morning with my Crunch Berries in my little bowl in my jammies, watching all those cartoons, and they were always so colorful and vibrant and entertaining. It definitely, as a kid, kept you entertained and everything like that. So then fast forward, I was like, I wanted to have the series be something that's vibrant and colorful for the kids and stuff like that. And, a lot of the kids, they gravitate towards those kind of things, colorful things. But I also want to make sure that it also involved those embedded messages in terms of the social skill too, that the series is based upon. So, I decided on the purple snail. I went through a couple variations. It was either going to be yellow, purple. Those are kind of the two. Blue are some of my favorite colors. So I settled on purple, and it kind of resonates, when you think about a lot of the previous kids shows like Barney and like that, all of them were like purple in that way. So I said, well, maybe, I'll go in that direction.
I love that. I love that.
Super interesting.
It is.
I'm curious. So you talked about the deciding between the colors, but it sounds like there wasn't a decision on him being a snail. Was he always going to be a snail? And what do you think led to that?
Well, by trade, I'm a school counselor, of course. I do the author thing, but I'm also a school counselor and professor too. So a lot of that stemmed from back in the day when I was doing social skill lessons with elementary kids. And elementary kids, their attention span is not too much. So, I was thinking of creative ways to kind of, innovative ways to try to have the kiddos listen to the social skill lessons and stuff like that. So I came up with the idea of using, it wasn't purple back then, it was just a regular brown puppet snail.
Oh, wow.
That I said, I'll go in the classroom, I'll use this and try to maybe incorporate that to have them at least get the social skills in bits and then have them entertained. So then they'll be enthusiastic about learning social skills. So before I walked into the classroom that day, I said, what am I going to name this puppet? And I'm standing at the door, and I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to call him Harold from the Hood. Leave it at that. Walk in the classroom, shut the door, start doing the social skill lesson, and the kids gravitated toward that. And I've never imagined, all these years later, that I would actually have that incorporated into a social skills series and stuff like that.
I really love that. And I when I was thinking about the snail, Kyle and I were talking about it before the show, actually, and we were thinking about why the snail? And I was like, well, maybe it's because, the snail is kind of a slow animal, and maybe he's trying to motivate the kids. And even if it's a snail, you can still get up and go. And Kyle's like, no, man, because slow and steady wins the race. And so there's all these messages that are in there. And it leads me now to think more of a process question. How do you get into the minds of a child who is in, first grade, second grade, pre-K? Like, how do you get into a child's mindset like that? Do you have a process for it?
Well, I know one of the things you definitely have to speak, whatever your lesson you're giving, you have to make it in their language that they can relate to. So a lot of the things I make it relatable to stuff that I hear them talk about at recess or in the classroom and stuff like that. I listen in and I'm hearing them talk, kids are at the lunch table and they're 5 feet apart and they're texting each other. I'm like, yo, he's literally like 5 feet away. Like, just walk over to him and talk to him. Like, I'm seeing these interactions with the students and stuff like that on the day in and day out. And that kind of provides a lot of the insight to kind of understanding the language and where they're coming from. A lot of the terms I have to learn myself. I ask them, what does this mean when they say, hey, that's ice or something? I'm just making up, but that is something they say. But, hey, what does ice mean? It means that you're looking good. I don't have a clue. I'm a little bit older, but I try to incorporate learning their language to make sure that I incorporate what I put in my social skills as something that they can connect to because it speaks in their language in that way.
That's fascinating. So it's almost in order to teach, you have to learn.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen and learn. But this actually drives my brain in a different direction, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So, the thought of like a third grader, an 8-year-old on a playground texting on a cell phone to someone who's 5 minutes away, like I would never have let you guys do that.
No.
Not that that was even a thing, but I'm wondering, because the whole aspect of teaching social skills, especially for the pre-K to 5th grader, and of course 5 years ago we got locked down with COVID and kids got shut in. And so is that a driver for you to teach these social skills, because kids don't have the social skills that maybe my kids or we, when we were young, learned in kindergarten, how to share and how to communicate and how to pretend you weren't crying in the corner. But did COVID have an impact on some of the messaging that you wanted to provide?
Definitely so, because COVID, that was definitely a tough time, and you figure like everything was Zoom, and everything like that. And actually, that's the time when I figured out I was going to create the social skill series. Was during COVID when we were in lockdown.
Wow.
And I'm locked in the, at that time I was living in an apartment and everything, and it was just me in the apartment, and you couldn't go places, you couldn't do too much, and even with the school settings, the kids would do the Zoom, but half of them weren't doing the Zoom. They knew they would have the links and stuff to join, but they weren't joining, and if they did, they were probably on their video games and turned the camera off. You could hear playing in the background kind of stuff. So it was a disconnect. A lot of kids were disconnected socially, and I mean, when the transition got closer to actually coming back to school and being in the school setting, that definitely was, I could see it as, as a counselor and stuff. It was definitely a difficult transition for a lot of children. I'm sure it was like that across the country. Getting back in the flow of learning academically, getting back in flow of socializing with their peers, being socially in the same space as their peers and teachers and stuff. And sometimes when you have such a disconnect and you're just visualizing people through a screen, it's just not the same as that personal one-to-one encounter that people have. So, I mean, it definitely was a social disconnect in that way during COVID. And I think a lot of kids did have difficulty getting back in the flow of things. But I mean, that's what counselors are for, to try to bridge the gap, to have them be able to do that and integrate back in the school setting, in a safe and appropriate way.
Oh, that's great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I wondered if COVID might have an impact.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I wanna pivot to something that I think even folks who know your writing and are familiar may not be familiar with. You are a Hall of Fame basketball player in the Springfield Public Schools. You're an All-American at the JUCO level, and I'm so curious about when people sort of make transitions from one field to another, and if that experience playing competitive sports at a high level, just as far as your process when you were an athlete and working in that, if anything from that preparation, that process, how you went about that, translates now into your writing.
Absolutely. I mean, team sports teach you about, working with others, differences, other cultures and stuff like that. I mean, just working as a team, as a unit, and focusing on one goal, which is to win. Of course, we play sports to win. I live in Massachusetts, Springfield, Massachusetts, but I'm like a New York Yankee fan, and people are always frowning upon me and stuff like that. But it's the team element of learning how to compete together, practicing together to get better and stuff like that. It's like that common goal thing, and that kind of permeates in life too, because I mean, you get older and you get responsibilities and stuff, and you have to go out into the work field and find employment and work with your fellow peers in the workplace and stuff like that. You have to learn to navigate a lot of that, and I think sports teaches a lot of those crucial elements of being able to navigate those fields, and it's life, kind of lifelong lesson stuff. And of course, you keep connection with those athletes that you went through the fires with, as they say, when you're in the courts and you're going through the fire of the battles in the trenches and stuff, they say, and stuff like that. You learn those things and you appreciate those things. And those are friendships that last for a lifetime as well. So I think sports definitely teaches those lessons. And a lot of my students and peers, I try to, at least the ones who have interest in sports, I definitely try to have them be like, hey, let that be your vehicle. Let that be your avenue to put yourself in position to learn critical skills, social skills, and be able to, push yourself to be going towards something positive in your life and stuff like that. So sports definitely has done that for me. And I always look back and, at the kids in the school, some are basketball players, and they'll talk trash to me and stuff, and I'll be like, you don't want that. You don't want that kind of smoke with me. You don't want that, man. I start pulling out the accolades, and they're, yeah, but I still can dunk, though. It might be with a tennis ball, but I'll still get a quick one in real fast.
They don't want to wake up the sleeping giant, right?
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to poke that bear.
And I think that there's something really interesting there with the and I think that it really resonates in your writing too, that everything's about positivity. And in your first book in the Herald series, it's all about he wants to go play with people, and
skateboarding
he wants to go skateboard. He wants people to come skateboard with him, and all these other bugs, and people are there. They're like, oh well, we're different, so I don't want to play with you. And at the end,
being different is okay.
Being different is okay, as long as you guys can be friends. Go Ants, right?
Go Ants.
And so there's a really interesting tie-in there with what you were just talking about with sports, about coming from different backgrounds and being different people, and you coming together for a shared goal, and keeping those friendships. And I think that's really special.
Yeah, I definitely tried to make that. I tried to incorporate the social lessons for that particular book to kind of be able to resonate in that way, where it's not overbearing, but at the same time, it was very simplistic. But it also speaks kind of in the children's language that they can understand too. So I was like, that was the first book, and I said, COVID was going on. I was on the couch, having a glass of wine and everything like that. And all of a sudden, I was like, you know what? This is what I should be doing. From there, everything kind of snowballed into what it is now, which I'm so blessed and grateful for. But I mean, it definitely has been a process in that sense, but I definitely think it's important to let kids know, that it's okay to be different, and learning to maybe find common ground about things you like in common can connect you to other people and turn into lifelong friendships.
It's interesting. It's interesting that periods of trauma and stress can really help you find your path. I had a somewhat similar experience in terms of being late to becoming an author. I didn't start until recently. And so I'm drinking from a fire hose in a lot of ways. And so I do have a question about your illustrations. So you do those yourself?
So I came up with the sketch work for it, because I do dabble in art. I always was a kid. I was always good at drawing and stuff like that. So I put together the sketches for it, and then the publishing company, Carradine Publishing Company, helped me to generate kind of based off my sketches, the characters. So that's how that came about in terms of character creation. But I dabble in art a little bit, drawing and stuff. So I kind of figured, oh, what better time to utilize some of those skills
Yeah.
than to have that incorporated into the books. Even with the main character, you see the features of the main character, like he has glasses, I have glasses.
Mhm.
Back when I was in middle school, high school, I had a high top fade. You know, it was like, just like the Kid and Play stuff that you would see. I didn't have the color in it, but it was kind of similar in that vein. So a lot, even the incorporation of how the main character looks, Harold, has elements of me in there. So
Yeah.
it was fun to like create all that stuff. You get to like use your creative juices and creative mind to create things that are like fun and vibrant, and it's just fun doing those kind of things.
And how do you do that? Like, what is your process? Do you be like, all right, I'm going to sit down from 3 to 4 and I'm going to do this? Or does it just come to you in a moment? Or what exactly is your process for getting those creative juices flowing?
So most of the time, I mean, our lives get so full of things to do. Sometime I would only maybe sit down for 20 minutes and just start the idea, and then get where I'm doing. Then something happens. I got to go cook. I got to go do this. I got to go to the mailbox and pick up more bills and stuff. Stuff like that. But you know what I mean? But it would be a process, and I will always make sure I take my time. I think that's the most important thing. A lot of times people are such a rush. Everything is rushed today. Microwave oatmeal, microwave Pop-Tarts, microwave instant pudding, like everything's got to be fast, quick in our society. And I always feel like it's important to kind of slow down and take your time. I think in that way you can really think about what you're doing, and whatever ideas you're incorporating, it'll probably come out to whatever vision you have in a better way in that way. So I've always been one to kind of, in the moment, it might be 20 minutes here. I might not get back to it for a few days, life take hold of things. But at some point, you do come to some finalization of whatever the creative idea that you've, been put forth and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. Like life, you work around life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Building on that, I'm really curious. You've got each one of your books in the Adventures of Harold from the Hood has sort of a through line message that you're trying to share in a real fable sort of way. And I'm curious, where does the idea for a new Harold story come from? Is it from things that you see in your day to day being around students? Do they strike you and you've got the whole story? Where does that come from?
A lot of times it's kind of like throughout the day, especially at the school environment. You see things happen and you're like, oh, that looks like it could definitely be a social skill lesson. But, sometimes I don't always have a chance to jot stuff down, and then you get home from work and you just want to rest and relax and stuff like that. And but most of the time it just comes out where I just figure out, okay, I remember something maybe that happened. I'm like, okay, kids could definitely utilize a social lesson in that domain to help them kind of navigate that part of their growing up and everything like that. So then, it just comes down to kind of fleshing out what is actually going to be the social skill lesson, and then building from that framework and putting together the whole story. So if I was going to, like the last book I did with the dealing with frustration and anger in a healthy way, I knew that was going to be the social theme of that book. And then from that theme, I kind of just branched out to have it, constructed where, okay, the lesson is there, but also making sure that, the characters are engaging each other in the process of the problem solving and stuff like that. So that kind of comes as it comes. Sometimes I don't have the whole idea fleshed out, but at least I have the framework put in for whatever the social message might be for a particular book that I'm writing.
I have a question that really triggers something in my brain a little bit. So you're observing these kids and you're listening and you're really absorbing, and that's kind of part of your process. And then you're translating that into Harold's messaging for the book. I'm curious though, how has Harold influenced you as a person and a writer? Because it's not just all out go, right? There's a feedback loop. So how has Harold and his adventures and lessons, how has that influenced you as a person and as a writer? And maybe as a counselor?
I mean, it definitely, counsel is my craft. So, I'm kind of like how you say, I try to be like Mike, be the best I can be in that. I want to be the best. I want to be the greatest, and in that craft, because that's my craft. And at the same time, like sometimes you don't really realize how people are inspired by the work you do and stuff because you're so busy caught up in providing and trying to go forth and bring forth a message and stuff. Of course, I always say that's all part of my purpose. The things that I'm doing to inspire youth worldwide to be the best they can be, the best versions of themselves they could be, knowing, understanding love, self-love, understanding their worth and things of that nature. So with me, sometimes I don't really always take time to really look at how some of the stuff inspires other people, but I do get like messages from different authors and different people and that will let me know, hey, we love the work that you're doing and stuff like that. And that, it feels good when people who are complete strangers that you just, have real no connection to, that you're inspiring them for positive change. And that is, if anything, that's what I want. If I'm able to inspire 1, 2 people, 3 people, or 1 million people, whatever the case may be, it's about that message of inspiration, positive change. And that, goes in terms of the world too. You want a lot of these things to manifest itself in a way where we're seeing that positivity spread throughout the world. And I know, the times we live in today, things are so difficult all across the world in a lot of places and stuff. So having that beacon of positivity, I plant that beacon in the ground and say, hey, this is what we need to focus on. This needs to be the message. This is what we need to bring forth, especially to our kids, because those, when we get older, the kids are going to be making important decisions for our lives when we get older and they become, get older and they get into positions where they're able to make change on their own and influence the world in their way. So I always gravitate toward that message and hope that it is inspiring. But it is interesting because I never really realized or thought Harold would come to fruition like this. I'm like thinking of some of the things I've been able to do and all the doors I've been able to have open and meeting and connecting with so many wonderful people from so many different industries outside of just the author industry. And I mean, it's just a blessing to be able to do a lot of the things that I do and have the platform to be able to inspire change in a positive way like that.
I love that. The beacon of light that shines. But also, what other areas have you been exploring? How has Harold allowed you to enter these other worlds? And how has that impacted you as a person in your life?
Well, I think it definitely keeps me on my toes because I'm always advocating for self-care too. So like where I wasn't as proficient with making sure I take care of my own physical health, mental health, stuff like that, I'm keenly more aware of that. And I kind of utilize that as a way of, knowing, I'm keeping my energy level high because like they say with the school system, if you're not recharged, you don't recharge the battery, you have that energy, the kids can feel that too. And, you want to put yourself in a position where you're care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually too, and all those aspects because they all combine together for a holistic person. So for me, I just am blessed to be able to do those things. I mean, most of the stuff I do is little stuff, I'll some of the other, my friends and stuff will get online and play some Call of Duty and talk a little trash and stuff like that. But for me, that's therapeutic. That's my therapeutic intervention time. But, a lot of people have other interventions that they like to use. But I do always emphasize how important self-care is. Sometimes we're such helpers that we forget about ourselves. And I think for me, that's one of the most important things I've been wanting to make sure I remember. Yeah, you're helping, you're doing what you do and everything, but don't forget about yourself. Make sure that you do things, even if it's for a half an hour a day, just do something you enjoy, 15 minutes a day, do something you enjoy. I do the reading, do the little online stuff and stuff like that. And then, I sit around and think about creative ideas for new books and stuff like that too. And, going forth with spreading the brand of Harold from the Hood in whatever way that I'm led to in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm 100% with that. I mean, that's something that I talk about. Recreation, the root word is recreate. You got to restore, recharge, and re-energize. And I talk about how in the music you have to play the pause because the pause is just as important as the note to the overall quality of the piece, which of course the quality of the piece is just a metaphor for a person's life, their mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, psychological health.
Yeah.
So I love that you do that. And I love that you're teaching kids to do that. So that's I think a really important message. Um, I'm so getting back to sort of the process of it, the author process of it, the more functional aspects of it. So as an author illustrator, and you're published through a house, how did you go about deciding to put things out there? And then did you go through a process where you sought out an agent, or did you go to a house, or how did that work for you?
Well, my journey is interesting because it's like I really honestly, I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning. I had no clue. I'd never had been involved in any of this kind of stuff. So when I started in, I didn't even know how I was going to get published. But I was able to connect with a small publishing company, and I was like, okay, well, this is the avenue I've been given. I'm going to use that and utilize that avenue to get the books published and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like I didn't really know. I would just learn it on the fly. Like, okay, now I had my first book. I don't know anything about marketing, promotion, anything like that. I had no clue. So it's kind of like I always was learning as I go, and seemed like when I put the puzzle pieces together, they would fit, and all of a sudden I'm able to do this, or able to do that, or connect with somebody who does know how to do what maybe I'm trying to do in terms of the brand and stuff like that. But I mean, it is a process. You know, you think about the business side of everything, and then you think about, you know, yes, creative side is wonderful, but there's another whole side to everything. And even with the marketing and promotion, I had to learn that process. But I mean, I'm always one, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to put my all into it. I'm not going to half step and just, you know, go half-hearted at it. If I'm putting an idea into something, I'm definitely going to go full throttle. So I'll go online and Google and say, hey, how does this work? How do you do this? How do you do that? And, you know, Google is my best friend most of the time, because that's how I would learn a lot of stuff. And then you know, you get into marketing and promotion, and now you're realizing, and things kind of come together in that way. Where you're able to have, you know, by the time the second, third book come now, you have a kind of a better understanding of the flow of how everything goes and what it means, how important it is to promote pre-release and stuff like that. And, you know, like it's a lot of little things that people will say is like intricates and stuff like that, but really those are some of the most important elements of, especially when you talk about releasing books and stuff. You have that pre-release stage where you're promoting and marketing in that stage before you know. So I mean, it culminates in a lot of different elements, moving parts in that way. But I've been able to find a way to navigate those things. And I mean, the author community has been great as well, because I mean, there's so many great authors out there, and I've been fortunate and blessed to be able to connect with so many of them. And so, you know, I'll reach out and say, hey, how did you do this? Like, who did you contact to make this happen? Like, you know what I mean? And of course, they're so forthgiving with information, so helpful. The author community is such a helpful community. I've never met any other author, if they were New York Times bestsellers to whatever, you know, whatever it might be, always have been seeming to want to help and okay with giving it feedback and stuff like that. So I utilize those avenues too as part of the process of trying to learn the craft of being an author and what that means and entails all together in a holistic way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's so important. And I have found the same thing as well. The author community is just so caring and giving. But as you say, it's a lot. There's a lot to it. It's so much more than I think. It's not just you write a book, you put it out there, and boom, you're done. Yeah. That's like, I feel like writing the book is just a small fraction of it. But and having said that, you know, there's some statistic I read that more than 80% of people want to write a book, and less than 4% ever do.
Yeah.
And a smaller percentage of them gets them published. So it's a small thing, but a lot of people want to write a book. So if you had to pick, what's your one best piece of advice for someone who's interested in writing children's books, in writing in your genre? What would you say is the most important thing that they should think about or do?
Definitely have a positive mindset, because it's not always going to go the way you want it to. Even after I had the first book put together, it took quite a while for me to even get to the point where it got published. And during that time frame, I didn't allow myself to get frustrated or deterred. I would just kept a positive mindset and said, hey, when the divine timing with her works, it'll happen. And of course, with divine timing, it happened where I was able to connect and make those things happen. The best advice in that term is don't be deterred. A lot of things will not always go the way you want them to and plan would go. Sometimes things go left and you have to accept that, but stay the course. And if it's something that you really have a burning desire, and you keep that positive mindset and also speak on it. Sometimes I always say, you got to speak on what you want. So it's like, I will openly say, I would like to have my book published, bringing that energy to the ethers and stuff, speaking on it and stuff. And most of the time when you put that positive mindset together with everything else and the package of everything else, being self-aware, having self-care, taking care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, things, at some point, a door will open. At some point, a door will open. It may not mean when we want to, but at some point a door will open. And I think that's the best advice. And the other thing is, like, don't feel like the book has to be perfect. Sometimes I think when you're trying to put together a book or something like that, you feel like the book just has to be perfect, and it really doesn't. It just has to convey what you want the book to convey to your audience, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and it'll be accepted. And however it is, you grow your fan base, and I mean, things will work out. But it all stems back to having a positive mindset and not being deterred by the hurdles that come along with trying to get to that point of being published and stuff like that.
I love that.
I think that's wonderful.
I
And
love
it resonates, I think, far beyond just writing. I know there's so much of what you just said that resonated with me going through the process as a filmmaker, going through the process of both people not knowing that it's not just you make the thing and then it puts it out. There's so much more that has to happen behind the scenes, but also that not letting the need for it to be perfect get in the way of creating something very good and something special, because you're worried about the tiniest little details here and there.
Yeah.
So that's
Perfection is the enemy of productivity.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can I switch gears a little bit?
Go for it.
Because I'm back in my author mind as a process person. When you're developing your stories, you create your drafts, whatever stage you may be in, do you ever put together little groups of kids and say, hey, what do you think of this? Like, before you put your book out, and do you accept do they have feedback? Do you ask for their feedback? I mean, what would
the workshopping phase?
Look at the workshopping. Like, do you beta test with your kids?
Well, my daughter, she's 14, so she really is like the back behind the scenes, because she's 14. She definitely knows the language of the kids. So, like, when I was deciding what the title for the fourth book was, When I Feel So Annoyed, I was like, I would confide in her and say, hey, what do you think? And I would pick up hills, and all the kids say is, oh, that's so annoying. Oh, that's so annoying. Everything. Oh, you're annoying. Like, that's what the kids say. So I was like, asking her for a little feedback. Yeah, well, does that be? Yeah, Dad, that'll be good. Yeah, I think, yeah, when I feel so annoyed. Okay. That's something that resonates in the kids' language. You know what I mean? Of what they say today. Everything is annoying. So that's how they express their frustration, by using the word annoying 1,000 times. So I kind of do that. And then I also, I do like read alouds and stuff with the kids at school, because I do middle school. So I'll do like little read alouds and little test run, just to see how the kids take to it and stuff like that. And most of the time the kids seem like they really gravitate and enjoy it. And then I'm like, okay, well, I got something here. Now I got, something to work with. So a lot of times I just kind of do that, and it works out well, because then the kids, they know I'm an author too. So a lot of times they're, sneaking around and trying to see about my books and stuff behind my back and stuff. I'm like, yeah, Dr. Price, I just Googled, you have the book on. Google me. No, you don't supposed to do that. You don't Google Dr. Price, man. We don't do that. But you know what I mean? But they were trying to find out about book stuff and all that stuff. And, so when they're enthusiastic about it, and enthusiastic, because it's all about learning, if they're enthusiastic about it, then I'm definitely happy that, however it navigates, that it works in that favor.
That's interesting, though, that you're sort of interacting with middle schoolers and teenagers, your daughter, but you don't interact with the 6-year-olds directly. You don't get their feedback. But I guess that's because, and correct me if I'm wrong, But maybe that's because once kids get to middle school, they remember what it was like. They know, but they have the lens of their own personal experience and maturity to be able to better interpret. So it's actually kind of brilliant. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
It originally was, the series was going to be K through 6th. But the thing is, by the time they get around the 7th grade, they're like, oh, that's too kiddie. Like the 7th, 8th graders, they don't feel like, yeah, it's nice, but yeah, I want to do something else, you know?
Right.
But that's about that cusp of where they still have that interest. So I said, well, I could make it be like pre-K to 5 and just focus on elementary school levels and stuff like that. 6th graders, of course, it'd be good for them too. But usually by the time they get to that 7th grade stuff, they're like, yeah, it's cool, but yeah, I'm going over here to do something else.
They're ready to read Holes or The Hunger Games or something like that, right?
Not the Hunger Games. Ooh, that's a little young for that.
The kids read it all. They read all that stuff. Oh, they really
Crazy. Yeah, I remember actually when he was quite the reader, and I wouldn't let him read certain things. And he was like, but I really want to read it. And I'm like, just because you can read it doesn't mean you should read it. So got to focus on that age appropriateness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super curious because you're 4 books in. You've got the accompanying workbook. You've got a little short animated video of the first book. I'm wondering when you've got all of that and that's there. Do you think about what comes next for Harold? Do you think about what comes next for you? How is that process of thinking about what's next in your journey as a writer, as well as the journey of this character?
So, I mean, that is definitely, it was just an unbelievable feeling to be like, okay, you create a book and then actually you have like an adaptation made and you're actually seeing your characters come to life like that. That's the most amazing thing. For me, it was definitely a eye-opening experience that I'll never forget. But at the same time, you want to create more content too for your audience too. So of course, I'm in the process. I'm going to be having the second one based off the 4th book. When I Feel So Annoyed, that's going to be the next adaptation that's being created right now as we speak. But I'm also going to be working toward creating more of what they call like mini shorts. So it'd be like maybe 20-second clips and stuff like that, and put that on his own platform. And the idea is to, at some point, to be able to navigate toward bigger aspirations. So maybe having it adapted, because I do have like a screenplay that I had put together like years ago, and this kind of pays homage to all the old school cartoons, the Looney Tunes, Hanna-Barbera, all that stuff that I used to watch back in the day. Kind of, it's written in the element of I kind of paying homage to those cartoons, but still, kind of for today's time. So at some point I'm thinking like once I'm able to do a lot of mini shorts, put that material out there, and then gravitate toward bigger and better things, or things I want to gravitate toward in terms of maybe one day having like a mini family film thing, something like that. I have to just keep running the course and do the things I do now to put myself in that position of hopefully be able to do those things. So I do take great pride. It's definitely a great process to be able to do the mini, all the animated stuff. It's, because you really get to use your creative juices.
So that's interesting about the screenplay though, too. So when did you write that, and why did you shelve it? And when do you think you'll get back to it? And what do you go into, and like, what's your messaging there?
So that is really, that was probably that was made a little bit after COVID was over. By the time it got to the final, part of that script, and primarily it had elements of social lessons in it, but it was more kind of geared toward the entertainment kind of, when Looney Tunes kind of, Hanna-Barbera kind of thing. So it does have like social lessons in it, but it's more geared toward like being like something that's family fun. The family could sit down and they could enjoy it together and get some laughs and stuff like that, and just go through the adventures of Harold from the Hood and follow his path of what he's doing and how he's interacting with his adventure through that whole element of the screenplay.
Well, laughter is the best medicine.
It really is.
I really love that. So it's one of the things we try to do all the time.
Yeah, I'm really, really interested in that.
Yeah, me too.
Especially because animation over the years is really such a two-sided street, where you've got these really amazing animated films that you learn something from, and they're moving, and they're special, and they're funny, and then there's the other side of like the more like you see your kid watching it and you go, oh, okay, all right. So having something based around such a positive character like Harold, I think I think it's awesome, and I'm very excited to hopefully see where that goes next.
Bring that to life, because I'd be interested in seeing that.
Yeah, definitely is exciting. And, you know, like that's what you do. You just kind of find avenues to expand the brand and you know, reach into what, you know, things of the unknown that I'm not too sure about. I kind of be like, okay, if I have an opportunity to branch out into something, you know, that's what I do. And so far it's worked out for me so far in this author journey. A lot of things, you know, a lot of doors have opened up, and I'm, you know, it's all blessings to be able to have those doors open up, to be able to do a lot of the things that I'm able to do on the platform right now.
What is the most unexpected thing that has happened? Like the thing that you absolutely never thought would happen when you became an author?
Yeah, I would say, like, I definitely wasn't, in terms of like marketing promotion, I definitely was not too sure how that worked. But after I got a grasp of it, that's one thing. But also, just in terms of how to spread the message, you know, and I think a lot of that, people say I'm doing all the work for the children, but, you know, social skills are important for adults as well. A lot of people tell me, hey, that fourth book you got, how to deal with anger and frustration, a lot of adults could use that lesson, you know? So it's like, you know, yeah, you have the element where you're about social skills for kids, but you also have a big understanding that that's also important for places of employment too, and stuff like that. So that's kind of like where I get into my program, you know, developing social skills through literacy program, where I can go in depth with employers and, you know, things like that, agencies, about the importance of social skills. Because, you know, and a lot of times with business, even in the business world, the way that you make connections is through social interaction, having what they call good people skills. You know, you have good people skills, which is social skills in a nutshell. So, I mean, if you have good people skills, you're able to make connections with others and get business deals done. So I always like to incorporate how important it is to utilize those social skills, why they are important. So that's what my program is, in terms of when I'm starting to deal with companies, agencies, employment places and stuff like that, to go in and teach about why those skills are important and how those skills can enhance your business in that way. You know what I mean? A lot of my own self is about connecting with others. I've been told I'm kind of a people person. So when I'm gravitating toward the business aspect of things, it seemed like it just comes natural for me to be able to talk about things, you know, say, hey, let's collaborate on this. And all of a sudden, hey, you know, things are moving in the direction, and we're collaborating on whatever it might be. And, you know, things are moving. So, I mean, people skills are so important. I always feel like those are like social skills, soft social skills. And so that kind of connects with my program that I kind of, you know, involve myself in terms of dealing with companies and employers and stuff like that.
I love that. Although I have to say, I kind of like people purple skills. Purple skills. Like the flying purple people eater. It's like people in purple. It's like, you could be teaching. These are my purple people skills.
Like Harold the Purple Snail.
Like the Harold the Purple Snail, because purple is the color that's fun.
There we go.
You know, it is.
I think there's something so cool about that, and just as we've been talking, I think there's something so interesting that you said earlier when you were talking about your work as a counselor, and how you want to, you know, your goal is to be like Mike, to be the best, and there's such an interesting dynamic there of in all of your work that you do, whether it's in the school, whether it's in your writing, whether it's your business work outside. It's to be the best in service of others. And I think that there's something really, there's a competitive nature of that, that comes from that sports background. I know I have that too, but it's being competitive in search of being
In a giving way.
a giving person. Exactly.
Absolutely. I think that is like a part of that. I mean, I always say when you give to others, you do get blessings in return. Right? When you help others, you do receive blessings. And I think that has definitely manifested itself in my life in terms of being a helping spirit, wanting to help others, and being diligent about, wanting others to succeed. I want to see people be successful and enjoy life. And, life is short, but I mean, while we're here, do all the best of positive things we can to influence others. And, when it's all said and done and they say, hey, when it's time to go upstairs and to heaven, all that other stuff, hey, this person influenced me. This person had an impact on my life. This person said things. People will sometimes forget what you said, but they won't forget how you feel, how you made them feel in that sense. So a lot of that ties into that as well.
I really love that, if I'm hearing everything correctly, the core of your process is giving. The core of your process is listening, encoding, and translating so that you can provide something that helps and is beneficial. And I feel like that is a really selfless and beautiful process that I'm really glad that you've shared with us, because it's very powerful.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. So I really appreciate that.
I appreciate the kind words. I always say, back in the day, the kids, kids today, they'll be like in the school, they'll be like, LeBron's the best basketball player. And I'll be like, no, it's Mike. It's definitely Mike. You can't beat 6 rings. You know what I mean? LeBron's great. I'm not saying he's not a great player, but, you incorporate these ideas of people's expectations for greatness and stuff like that, how people measure that and stuff like that. And I think, especially when the helping world, when you're a helping person and stuff like that, a lot of that resonates differently. It's not just, about athletes and stuff like that, but it's about people, genuine people, and people's genuine concerns and stuff. And in terms of like the kids, of course, it's about building social skills so they can hopefully become young, positive adults. I know when I was younger, I was in the church and stuff like that, or going to church, I should say, probably more than I should be going now. But those lessons, like the pastor would always say, if you're not going to join the church, at least be a good citizen. Like he would say that, and so those kind of messages always kind of stay with you. You grow up and there's some people who become mentors and stuff like that, and they give you these messages that kind of stick with you. And even with the coaches that I used to work with, one of the coaches had a saying that said, when you are dealing with adversity is actually the things that makes you go stronger, so that when you get where you're going, you'll appreciate it more because of all you went through to get there. And even today, I was saying when I was still able to dunk the basketball backwards and stuff, but that's something that resonated with me and stayed with me. So even today, like, years later, that still stayed with me. And I think that's what happens. A lot of people, we get mentors that come through our life for a season or stuff like that. And they're there to teach us a certain lesson and stuff like that. And then we learn those lessons. We utilize those lessons to move forward and present yourself better and be better. Like I say, every day is a brand new day for a new beginning. Every day is a brand new day. I always tell the kids, tabula rasa. They'd be like, what's that? Blank slate. I forget what language that's in. I think that's in French. I forget exactly. But tabula rasa means blank slate. Everything's brand new. So each day is a new day to begin abroad, begin new, foster new connections, foster new experiences. So like, I guess that's the counselor side coming out of me a little bit, but, I always think those things are so important as well.
Yeah,
Well,
there's a whole lot in there.
Absolutely. And here you are all these years later after talking about all these mentors and all these people, and now you are
the
that
mentor.
person
Yes.
for so many kids, both your kids in your school as well as the people who read your books.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's wonderful.
I do, but I think, you think back to when I was a kid and you have, how you say it takes a village back, back in the day it was kind of like
takes a
that.
village to raise a
So
child.
if my mom and dad wasn't around and Uncle Billy was around, and I'm doing something, he's going to speak up and say something about it, because it takes a village. But at the same time, you understand that a lot of those things are important, family values, norms and values, where things stand. Like, I have the background with the church too as well, which kind of propagated my understanding of spirituality and how that connects with our lives and stuff like that. Because a lot of times, I always say there's really no coincidences. There's always things that happen because that was divinely timed, happened, supposed to happen in that time. But I mean, just a blessing when you help others, you're blessing to others, you receive blessings in return. And I think a lot of people, with so much trauma in the world, a lot of people have a lot of unhealed trauma in the world that they are still maybe haven't dealt with or tackled yet or faced yet. And a lot of those traumas in lives can deter you from reaching the pinnacle of who you could be and who, reaching the level of being the best version of yourself, I should say. But you do see a lot of that, even with the kids, a lot of trauma that they're dealing with, from family trauma, whatever it might be, unhealed trauma. And that goes for adults too. There's a lot of adults that are walking around with unhealed trauma, and that stuff is, festering within itself and probably keeping them from reaching their potential full growth and development and become the best version of themselves, just because they haven't took the time to deal with those feelings and emotions of whatever the trauma might be, because a lot of that can be the gate to, holding things back a little bit in terms of wanting to meet goals and aspirations for oneself.
Yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
And it kind of comes full circle with what you're saying, because, like you said, the African proverb, takes a village to raise a child. I'm fond of saying all the lessons you need for life, you learned in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And with COVID, there was no village. There was no kindergarten for young kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it exacerbated all those traumas for these kids, all those traumas. Like a lot of us, we face traumas, right? There was, parenting 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago was not what it is now.
Exactly.
Not that everybody's a perfect parent at any point in time, but there was, latchkey kids now would be like, oh my gosh, you're neglecting your child. Latchkey kids when I was a kid was like, yeah, right. Everybody's a latchkey kid, right? Everybody
Mhm.
comes home on their own. What's wrong with that?
Mhm.
But I feel like the work you're doing in putting these books out is really helping address some of the trauma that the young kids who had to grow up the first 5 years are so formative, right? And they grew up in isolation, without that village and without those lessons in kindergarten. And I just think it's a really profound way to look at the importance of the work that you're doing
Mhm.
through a purple
Absolutely.
snail.
Yeah, through a purple snail.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I think this has been wonderful.
That's been great.
Jim, thank you so much for coming on. I want to give you the floor, plug anything you've got going on, where folks can follow you, what's happening. Floor's
Your
yours.
books, everything.
Well, I use my website as the main hub for everything I do, and that's jimpricebooks.education, jimpricebooks.education. And there you'll find I have the activity books, all the books in the series. I also have the activity book there. All the information about me is on there, if that's what to be looked into. So I use that as a main hub, jimpricebooks.education. And I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I messed up some of the kids. Like, you're not saying it right. I say TikTok by accident. And they're like, you're not saying it right. Stop saying that. It's
You're right, I'm
TikTok.
doing it right. It doesn't matter.
You know what I mean? So Indeed. So I'm on those platforms. A lot of times I use those platforms to promote a lot of the the book stuff and stuff like that, and connect with others. So it's jimpricebooks.education. That's my
Excellent.
website. That's the
And
main
we'll-
hub for
We'll make sure
everything
to
that I
include
do.
that as well, for
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
For sure. Yeah. And thank you. We really appreciate it. I think this has been super interesting. Super interesting. And I love that your process is all about caring. That
Mhm.
seems to be the heart and the nut of your process. It's caring. And I think that's incredibly beautiful.
And I think we need more people like that.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Anyway, so thank you.
I thank you guys both for having me, Kyle and Alan, for having me come. And it's definitely been a blessing to be able to talk about my journey and be able to spread the message about peace and harmony and trying to make the world a better place. It all takes a village to do that. So thank you so much for having me be able to be a guest on your show as well.
Of
Our
course.
pleasure.
Yes.
Peace, love, and positivity. So
All right.
thank
We'll see you,
you,
Jim. Thank
and have
you.
a great day. So what did you think?
I think Jim's awesome. I mean, what an amazing human being.
Yeah.
Just, and I think we really got to the core of it, that his work is all centered on giving back.
Yeah.
And I mean, what a wonderful place to be as a creative, as someone who writes, but is also, you know, a counselor for kids. And it's just his whole life work
Yeah.
is about making the world a better place, person by person.
Hmm. And now he's going into adult venues as well
Mhm.
and teaching these same skills, which revolve around patience and kindness and acceptance.
Which we all need.
We all need that.
And I
We
think
all
that
need that.
you struck it when you said that you learned every lesson that that you need for life in kindergarten. But I'll add on to that so many people forget those lessons,
Yeah.
and we get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life and the chaos. We get stressed, we get short, we get self-centered, we get whatever. And
Yeah.
and so for him to be doing the work of reminding people at its core just to be a good person,
Hmm.
I
And
think that's really, really important and special work.
I love that his process, also the actual nuts and bolts of his process, involves listening.
Mm.
You know, he listens and hears what the issues are and then addresses them in a way where he teaches the kids how to deal with their biggest issues.
Yeah.
So I really just loved, he talked about slowing down. He talked about having patience, not just with others, but with himself. I love that he gave that guidance because so many people do want to write. I mean, writing children's books is something so many people want to do. And it's hard. People think, oh, it's easy, just throw something out there, but it's not. It's
Mhm.
actually quite difficult to find a message that resonates and be able to, in very few words, because children's books cannot have a lot of words.
No.
You know, in 200 or 300 words, you have to relate an entire story, a meaningful message, and make it enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. And he's really tapped into something here. So I'm just pleased he was here.
Yeah, I also just want to touch on the fact, I don't know if you picked up on this, but the story for how Harold from the Hood was created is actually so similar to the story of how SpongeBob was created, where
Oh.
originally the creator was using it as an educational tool,
Mhm.
and there was there's a sentient sponge in an environmental museum or something, and it built into this character that goes on to have a whole life and make a huge impact on people and teach valuable lessons. And there's such a really cool parallel there. And I think I speak for everyone when I say I hope for Dr. Price that Harold continues to grow and more people get to be introduced to this character and these stories. And yeah.
I agree. I would love to see Harold the Purple Snail everywhere. I think kids could really really relate to it. I certainly enjoyed reading through his books and watching a couple videos that we watched.
And I'm excited to see about this this feature
Right?
children's
I
film. It's
know.
gonna be
That's gonna be so cool. We didn't even know about that
No,
one.
I don't know that we might have gotten an
We
exclusive
might have gotten
on
an
that. I
exclusive.
don't
That
know
might
that
have been a
he's talked
first.
about
Yeah,
that.
I don't think he's talked about it.
So hopefully
You heard it here first,
you
folks.
maybe heard it here first.
Maybe heard it here first. Maybe. We're just gonna take credit for
We'll
it.
take credit for
Yeah.
it. And then we'll have him back on when the movie
Yes, we
becomes
will.
a
100%.
number one hit.
Number
and,
one hit.
And DreamWorks puts
Oh,
a
there you
$50
go.
million
There
budget
you go.
behind it. And, no, that would be
You
very
know what?
cool.
He'd probably be more likely to put it on PBS to make it accessible to everybody.
Probably.
'Cause
What a
he
good
just
guy.
Seems like that kind of guy.
What a good guy.
True.
Well,
True.
folks, that is this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us with our chat with Dr. Jim Price. And we're super excited to see you next week for our next episode. In the meantime, make sure to follow us on social media, to like and subscribe and turn on your post notifications wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast so you never miss a new upload. And in the meantime, Allie.
In the meantime, enjoy and explore. So, what's your process?
Bye-bye.
Bye.